I can't hear. Barb, can you say something again just to make sure we can hear you?
I can hear you fine.
I can also hear you.
Okay. All right. Well, I think, Ron, we're ready to go now.
Okay, I'd like to call meeting in order. Six. And bring forward first item, which is approval of the warrants.
I need to do roll call first. So start with Steve Roundtree.
Here.
Trustee Corvallin.
I am here.
Right, perfect. Thank you. Barb Hart,
Here,
Scott Papich, Catherine Vallon,
Here.
Steve Carreau,
Here.
Andrew Dewar,
Here.
Ron Mitchell. Thank you all. Now you can go on to consent.
Okay.
Perfect. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Anyone have any questions on the consent agenda as to approval or non-approval? No.
Ron, you're gonna have to speak up. I can't hear you at all over here.
Okay, how's this?
Better.
How it's working that way.
All right. Hearing none, let's entertain the chair will entertain a vote to approve the consent agenda.
Tanya, can you hear Ron okay? I might have to switch speakers altogether.
No, I can hear better now, when he speaks up.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Please take the vote. Okay,
Steve Roundtree,
yes.
Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
yes.
Scott Papich,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon,
Yes.
Steve Carreau,
Yes.
Andrew Dewar, Mitchell.
Abstain. Okay. Next item is approval of the regular meeting minutes. Excuse me, the July minutes. Any questions from the public? Any questions from the board members? Chair entertains a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve the board minutes.
Second. Is there a second?
Steve Roundtree seconded.
Okay. Any discussion after a second? Hearing none, please call the roll for a vote.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes,
Scott Papich,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon,
Yes.
Steve Carreau,
Yes.
Andrew Dewar,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay. We'll now open the meeting to the public for any non-agenda items for discussion. Is there anyone in the public wishes to speak?
I do not see anyone online from the public.
We'll wait a couple more seconds. Hearing no request to speak, we'll move on to the next item, which are action items. The item before us, as the only action item, is to increase the board member meeting or the board frequencies. Board meeting frequencies. I'd like to open, well, we have to have a motion before we can have discussion. Chair entertains a motion to increase the Board meetings to twice a month. Is there a second? No second?
It is an action item. Yes.
Do you want to discuss it first before you go?
Yeah, I want to discuss it.
Was there a second?
To discuss this first.
Well, normal Robert's rules are to make a motion, second it, and then have discussion.
Well, you could discuss it before you make
You
the,
can, if you choose to deviate, that's fine.
right.
I think
Go ahead.
sounds like a good plan.
Do you want to go round table or just have people talk if they have something? Since this isn't a discussion item, which is more when we.
I think around the table is better.
Okay. And just remember, you've got those online as well. So do you want to start here or
Let's
online?
start with the folks online.
Okay. Does anybody online want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
Go ahead, Barb.
All right, great, Barb.
We are all volunteers and most of us run businesses here in town. And I do not think increasing the number of meetings will be helpful to the DDA. I think that Kate is more than qualified to do her job and we need to allow her to do so and keep our meetings at once a month.
I agree completely. I don't have time for a second meeting. No way.
I'm also in agreement. I feel like when we need an extra meeting, we're very good about going ahead and trying to get together and get a date. And if we absolutely need one, we have one occasionally, but a second meeting would be burdensome.
Board members present for comment.
I agree with the people who are online. I don't know how I could possibly find time to do this 2 times every month. So I'm against it.
I think if everyone, who's spoken and board members are open to having special meetings, having just been still trying to eat, because I ran in, having just rushed here from work, so, definitely don't have a excess of time now, but there are a lot of times when I feel like meeting more frequently for, projects is useful, and so I don't want to, make it seem like I'm not open to meeting more for, in special meetings, or if we find, a specific reason to need to meet more frequently. And, maybe within a month or two, I feel, like a little more time, but today you're being caught on a moment where I have been running around all week, every day, all day and all night. And then various other meetings that we've had from, development meetings to board meetings and then work. It's been a lot right now. So another regular meeting sounds like a bit much right now, but certainly special meetings for a purpose I show support.
You all are very wonderful about that, and I appreciate it because it does make sure that business gets done, like the budget meeting. So appreciate that.
Yeah, so I feel similar to what Edgar was saying, that I think it is good. We have a lot of important projects going on, and once a month does slow those down. I know from the wayfinding, like if we miss something from merge coming back in time, or we're just not on the ball, it's an extra month before we can do anything with the board on it. So I do see a need at times to have extra meetings. And it sounds like most of the board is, would be up for that, for special meetings. So I would say that I'm not inclined to have 2 meetings officially, but I am in favor of special meetings when there's a good reason to have them. And I hope the rest of the board would be open to that.
Yeah, I guess my question on this is maybe, I feel like we've had special meetings and then we do this looping doodle poll or whatever it is. And then it's like, oh, that doesn't work and this doesn't work and this doesn't work. And it's kind of like, it's in this rolling, like everybody's trying to figure out a time and our schedules are busy. Is there a way to say that like we keep that second, you know, the second slot as like, that's plan A for a
If-
special meeting?
That's nice.
So that we kind of like, we all try to like treat it as a placeholder for when it needs to happen, so we don't need to go down the path of, I mean, in the last 6 months, we've done how
Yeah.
many of those?
Yeah,
polls?
because and a part of it is there's definitely a time of the year where it's harder to get doodles, and I'm sure Miranda knows it's true from how much we do. And so it was definitely easier with this August meeting to treat that week that way and just send it out to everybody. And there's only 1 or 2 people that can't come, but they've given me their comments, and you will still have well over a quorum there. So I
Yeah.
like that idea a lot. It makes it easier for all of you to keep moving.
I mean, if we all, you know, gray out our calendar for that day and say like, if a special meeting needs to happen, can we try to do it there? So we don't need to get into that, like, then it's different days of the week and then, but I tend to agree, like, feel like, you know, once a month in addition to other things become, it's still a lot, so.
I think if we reserve those occasions only for when we really need to urgently meet, that sounds like that could be an acceptable solution. But I would say if we just commit to keeping every, fourth Tuesday open, then my concern is we get into the habit of just using it for routine stuff. And then we're right there at 2 meetings a month.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that Tuesdays in general do not work for me. I'm on deadline that day and I'm working. And as well, Tanya also has, sometimes there are work sessions and other things for the BOT on Tuesday. So Tuesday is not the best day. Wednesday is a great day. However, we also have other meetings on Wednesdays for other organizations. And I think we need to be really conscious of that and send out some kind of question to other board members of when would work or when would not work during the week. Because we are all exceptionally busy and we all want to do the very best we can for the DDA, but we also have to be conscious of what we're actually doing in our paid jobs and make sure that it fits in with what we are doing for the town overall.
Yeah, I agree.
I love the, you know, kind of the placeholder and, you know, reserve if it's absolutely necessary meeting. I would say, you know, in addition to, you know, to keep in mind with, you know, more frequent meetings is just the other, well, the opportunity for communication, you know, is increased. It's also additional agendas created, you know, like minutes made. There's a lot of other resources that go into that. So I think to to what I heard Scott speak of like, you know, we kind of keep that open, use it only if necessary. Another, you know, rather than thinking necessarily about evenings too, I guess there's the thought of, you know, do early mornings work for anyone, or do lunches work for anyone? If there was a random, you know, if we're talking about a special meeting that wouldn't necessarily always be a regular thing, are there other times, days of the week, rather than just a 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. time slot that would be potentially acceptable? But not necessarily posing that as a direct question now for everyone to answer, but
I could ask that of
Yeah.
people. I could reach
Could
out.
we
to them.
do,
I mean, that kind of happens at the doodle
It
polls, right?
does a little bit, and I already have a good feel for you all from working with you long enough. But I can, like, I know about Barb and the paper and that, and so I can reach out to people and try to get a better feel for a day that could work in that week, that we could think about if there's work sessions needed, that's what we
Can I
lay
ask?
out.
What is the purpose of this proposal so that we can do more work, or is it because we don't get enough done in our regular meetings?
Because we don't get it done at our regular meetings. 24 meetings gives you a lot of flexibility. So if we could do a survey to where the most people could make a second meeting and set that, I like your idea. We don't necessarily have to set it as a regular thing, whatever, but at least have it as an alternative so we know what day of the week, if we have one, if we need one, that we could call it and at least have a quorum.
And timing of the day too, I'll put that out there to
Timing of the
everybody,
day.
so if there is
For that,
more interest at a different time of the
I
day.
have to tell you, I'm apprehensive about it because one of the things that all organizations experience, and this is no exception, is this creep. We start with an intent, go down a road and become something else. And I would really hate for us to say, we're gonna only use this for special occasions. And the next thing you know, we're 6 months into it and we're meeting twice a month, every month, because we have something like an information item. So
Yeah.
it really isn't urgent. But
I'm
it's-
looking for something to try. If it doesn't work, try something else. As opposed to total rejection, because what you say could happen.
I just don't think this is
It does.
broken.
Right. I also want to say, like, I understand what you're saying, Scott, because you're as busy as I am, and I get it. If the meetings go through with enough information on the items, which has not always happened, and we don't go down any rabbit holes, which has not always happened, and all of the information is provided ahead of time enough that we can accurately read the package, I do feel like we come prepared. I think that most of us read the package ahead of time and understand what is happening. So I don't think that a regular second meeting is needed. I think that having the information and communication between board members is key. And work sessions are great, but no decisions can be made at those. So if you get 4 out of 9 people to attend a work session and you have to bring it back and explain it all over again, you're not going anywhere. So I think the most important thing is having enough information, not bringing forward information that is not complete, and making sure that the board has it in a timely manner so that we can read it ahead of time and understand exactly what is being proposed, could make the meeting shorter and more efficient overall.
Speaking, was that word?
Barb, yeah.
I also feel like, so far, every time we've needed a special meeting, we've been able to figure out a date and have a special meeting. I've been able to attend all except for the last one. And again, I'm kind of like, I don't see where the problem is. When we need one, we have always had one. I, at least in the time that I've been here, I've never seen a time when it's like, oh, well, we just couldn't find a date where enough people could be there. And so we didn't get that extra meeting in. We're having the extra meetings when we need them. And so why change that?
Ron, sounds like you're saying it isn't for special meetings, it's so we can just get more work done, right?
I think the velocity of projects could increase with a 2-week turnaround, in times where, just as an example, maybe on the Big Springs project, we're working closely with JDA. And, something has to go to them for review, and then we've got to wait a month before we can act on whatever that was. So I do see the point of the 2 meetings, where it could increase velocity of projects. But also, I think Barb made a great point that if we're all diligent, reading packets ahead of time and coming prepared, you're really reaching out to whoever had the aim if you don't quite go before the meeting, instead of hashing it out at the meeting. And I think we could be a lot more productive than we have been with one meeting. But I do see your point, when things have to go to an outside for us, wayfinding, it's similar, where we rely on Merge a lot to get something done so that we come back to the board. And if we're able to do that quicker, that project could move faster. Anyway, I just wanted to point those points.
Any other comments?
No, this is Tanya. I just think that a lot of the subcommittees could be more focused probably and get things done, and then be more focused about getting those questions and votes happening at our regularly scheduled meetings, and that's where I'd like to keep it. That's all.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion on this subject, which says increase in frequency? Chair, I'll entertain a motion that the board member or the meeting frequency not be increased. There,
Second.
Barb, second.
Barb seconds. Any more discussion after the second? Let's do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Could we read the motion first?
Okay.
I don't have it written down. I'm gonna have to go back. Sometimes it all goes too fast. Sorry, it's hard to participate. The motion was to not have or you can say it again.
Okay.
I can-
The motion is to not have a scheduled second meeting.
Keep it as is on Wednesdays.
Okay.
Too, right?
And on Wednesdays.
Just
That-
don't change anything.
Okay.
Only discussion I'd like to have is I would like to see a survey that if we do need a special meeting, what day at this point people think they would be able to attend? What's the most viable day for a special meeting for every people can make it?
I agree. I would only have just to our, if possible, if we could get the agendas turned in to Kate, make sure that maybe set our turn-in agenda timeline, disbursement of agendas slightly, give us all a little bit more time. I sometimes feel like I don't have enough time with just, 24, 48 hours to read through an agenda. I'd like at least.
Would you like?
I'd like to get it to you on
present a
Friday,
motion
not just the
Would
draft,
be-
but the final.
that the aim deadline be moved forward a couple days?
Yeah, I mean, that's a separate thing. Maybe it kind of dovetailed a little bit with this, but I don't want to muddy the water.
Not necessarily. I mean,
I have a calendar that I typically send out to you and that we worked with Barb that brought as an agenda item. And so it has it tied out. It's just that often because you all are a volunteer board, it just doesn't get on that day, and so we try to be as flexible as possible. But yeah, ideally, I really would like to get you your packets final on Friday.
Great.
Well, I think it is germane because if those get in earlier and there's enough time for everybody to digest it and read it, then we can get through the agenda faster.
I'll send out that calendar again.
Okay, we've spent a half an hour on this.
Yeah.
Could we amend, or may I amend the motion?
Sure.
That we put the aim deadline at least Wednesday at 5 p.m. prior to the Friday that it normally comes out.
So it's actually even earlier than that on the calendar. It's the week before. So that it's due on Friday. So then there is a little bit of time so that maybe by that Wednesday, we have everything. So then you and I can be looking at it and asking any questions that we might need before Friday when we are, finalizing and setting everything.
In terms of discussion, does anybody have any objection to this being added to the motion?
Well, that's a later deadline than what we already have.
Oh, I want an earlier deadline.
No, the deadline was the week before the Friday.
The Friday
So
before.
10 days before the meeting was the deadline. So we have a lot of stuff that comes in late. So if you don't want to have stuff that comes in late, that's great. It would actually make it go a lot smoother. Typically the stuff that comes in late is committee or chair report or town submitting something a little bit late because they're as busy as we all are. So that has always been the deadline, 10 to 11 days before the meeting to submit the information so that by the Wednesday before the meeting, 1 full week, all of the information is there. It gives Kate until Friday to put it all together because it's a lot of information. In the last couple of years while I've, 3.5 years while I've been here.
Okay, so instead of 10 days, we talking 2 weeks, we'll just go,
Well, then, so I worry that then that gets you all into a position where you're not having what's complete, because there's also, like, with merge and there's so many other factors that come into it that I do think that week before that Friday is a good deadline because it does give the cushion and it gives people the time and they know it's coming, but I just feel like 2 weeks, you would feel stifled by that, maybe.
yeah, I think I don't want to necessarily rock the boat now, with that, just I think maybe just asking and, for everyone's help with anyone who's doing an AM or information items to try to get it in as soon as possible. And I know that's, you know, everyone does the best they can, but the sooner the information gets to Kate and back out, we all have time to look at it.
It sounds like we don't really have a problem with deadlines. We have a problem with us just not getting stuff in by the deadlines. So we don't really, not sure we need a motion. If the motion is to keep the meetings the way they are, we don't need a motion.
I agree. Keep the meetings the way they are. This is a totally separate issue that could be brought up at a different time.
And if we observe the deadlines that already exist and we're a little bit more diligent, then maybe we just get it done more efficiently. Maybe.
All right, I think Scott has a point. I don't think we need a motion.
Okay.
Let's conclude this discussion and move to the next item.
I'll second that.
All right.
I know when the deadlines are now. I obviously. Maybe I'm not the only one in the room.
No, that's why I'll send it all.
Great conversation.
Okay. Sure like to hold this meeting to 2 hours if we can.
That'd be a great goal. Let's make that. a
So it's 6:30 now.
Yep.
We've got 12 items. That's a half an hour.
Boom, boom, boom.
If there's 3 minutes per item. So let's move to the first one. Let's discuss Board of Trustees strategic plan. Miranda, would you like to open the conversation?
Yes, so in your packet is the strategic plan that the Board of Trustees worked on. It covers the rest of this year and next year. So just for some context, the board really wanted to assess what are our goals for the next 18 months. And this is a list of what can we truly accomplish in the next 18 months. So it doesn't mean we don't have larger goals in life. It's just these are what we feel like we can truly get done between now and the end of the year. And we're really just looking for feedback. We've gone through all the boards and commissions. You're the last one. And just want to see if there's questions or recommended edits or anything of the sort that you would like to see us consider when we go to adopt this, hopefully next week.
Okay, let's have comments. Start with the online people first, if you would, please.
All right, Catherine? Do you have any comments?
I do not.
Turn the volume up a little bit on.
I know, I cannot. I've been trying for like the last 30
You
minutes.
can come sit right here.
You'll just have to come over.
Barb
I'm
Hart?
so sorry.
Okay, I'll just get that chair and I'll leave this.
I have no comments at this time.
Okay. Trustee Corvallin?
Well, of course, I am familiar with these goals. My only comment is that I hope that this doesn't limit us into denying good ideas because they're not on this goal list. It bothers me having a list like this in a way. I understand it's helpful for staff to be able to curtail their projects, but my fear is that this will be used to deny good projects and good ideas for future trustees and future members of different boards. But I hope that that is not the case. But I think these goals are all great. I think they're big goals. I don't know if they're all achievable. I think it's fantastic that we wrote down what we think. Thank you.
Yeah, and so to Corvallin's point, I think a bit of the conversation is it's supposed to help guide staff and also guide the board. So it isn't this like, oh, this looks like a great idea. Let's derail everything we're doing. I think the hope is that it's complementary. And so Trustee Corvallin, I totally get that concern. And I think probably something to talk with a bit more with the board next week about that. Because yes, there may be new things that pop up, but the hope is that town staff's time is limited and we can't just constantly be redirected, and then also simultaneously expect to get this group list done. And so I think as staff, our hope is if something new gets added on, that there's an understanding that may impact our ability to truly complete something else. And that just needs to be an open and honest conversation with one another if we do choose to add something to this list mid-year.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. We all have our own list of goals in our homes, I'm sure, and things happen where you have to change your goals, an emergency occurs and now you got to fix your roof or whatever. An opportunity arises for a big grant for something that's not on the goal, but it's still something the town needs, right? So sometimes as long as there's a flexibility involved with like, hey, sometimes we have to change 90 degrees, that's okay, that's life, right? So I just hope that doesn't become a rigid tool, but in fact, I understand what you're saying. You only have so much time, you can't do everything, so. Got it, and I'm in approval of this, so thank you.
Next. Anyone else online wishes to speak?
There's no one else on.
Andrew, you're next.
Um, I'm still taking some of this in. I mean, do you want specific feedback on certain objectives, or, I mean,
Yes, if you'd like to. Obviously we're asking you kind of from your lens point of the DDA, if you just have some things you're passionate about as an individual, you can of course later, Andrew, email those if you'd like. Welcome any and all comments though, so whatever you want to share.
yeah, no, I mean, just as far as, it seems like, strong organizational culture, as far as a town, certainly I think that's very important to have and attract and keep good people. I don't know what, I see salary, hourly rate. I don't necessarily see anything about, benefits, but I'm sure that's exists and is talked about, benefits and retirement and so on and so forth. I think certain backstory, I'd love to know at some point, and I can email this, but like the town's water rights and upstream storage locations, where those potentially are and what's been looked at or talked about in the past of those. And, I won't need to get into the housing, the development strategy. I think that's, needs to happen. Streets, this is, a bit of a personal plug here, but like First Street having town utilities on it and being completely washed out, but it being treated as a private road, like this isn't, this is maybe something I can handle in an email.
You're talking about First Street West.
West First Street, yeah, it is just, I don't know, Steve's walked up it on your walk, but it is just, it's terrible. And anyways, so love to see, help with that somehow.
Your time's up, Andrew.
All right, thanks.
Scott.
Big Springs egress study by December 2024. I have to admit, I don't know as much about this as the people who have spent time on it. When I see this, one thing, the thing that concerns me is we're still studying it. And I'm just curious on what we're still studying that we haven't been able to discover yet. And if it's significant, I would hope it happens quicker.
So that was, the Board of Trustees received the congressionally directed spending funds from Congressman Neguse and discussed it last year, and they had an opportunity to use it to build a route, one of the already studied routes, but did not land on a route, and so ultimately chose to use the money for studying. And I've been asked, oh, can we change our mind? The answer is no. That grant is already moving forward as a study, and so. ProSci brought this up, a concern that it won't get built, and that's just the truth. Is what the board agreed to was to continue to study it, but that the study would result in the actual build out of a route, the plan, and then we'd have to go for different funding for construction. So the end of the study will be a dedicated, committed route. This is our route. Here's the design for it, and then we'll build it later.
Yeah, in terms of public safety, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And sooner is far better than later. And
I would point out it's out of the district, our district.
yeah, it is. But they're asking for comments on the plan. So
That's true.
as a community, I think it would be a good thing for us to do with some diligence and vigor. But
Are you saying you think we should put it in our strategic plan?
no, I'm not. I'm saying that as far as commenting to the town, I hope we're not still just studying this at the end of next year. I hope we're actually know what we need to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one downfall, is there's no way to change the scope of
Right,
that.
okay. In the interest of the community, not the DDA.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah. Hey, Scott, have you seen the access to get to that ridge? It does require some studying because it's not easy to get there.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, since we didn't get approval to use the neighbor's driveway, it has thrown a real wrench in it, and it needs engineering 100%, so.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't have any comments or feedback. I think it's a good idea to develop this. No specific comments.
Steve?
Yeah, similar to Steve, I think it's nice to be able to like sit down and look at what's the town's plan. I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
I think for most people, like instead of just firing off random emails to the town, maybe they have the ability to look at it and say it's on their radar. I'll wait to see what happens. So I think it's also, it should be a good tool for us to look at things that we're saying are a priority and how does that play out with the overall town plan. So I think it's a positive.
But try and limit my discussion to just a few seconds. I think the DDA should take those elements that apply to our district seriously, the things that we have no jurisdiction over and no control over, such as the water rights, we shouldn't even bother to discuss. So we have to cherry pick, I think, the town's goals, incorporate them with ours, and try and work together in a partnership with the town to achieve the goals that we mutually agree on. That's all. Okay, any other comments? We didn't ask for public comments, I guess we should. Is there any?
There are no members of the public.
No public, nobody from the public, all right.
Nope.
We'll cease to ask for comments. You tell me.
Yeah, I'll let you know if somebody pops up.
Okay. 6.2 is proxy voting. I put this in full because I think we need to have everybody on the board be able to express their view as a vote. And our bylaws don't say one way or the other, whether you can or cannot. So that leaves room for dispute. So the item that I have put forward just says that any board member who's going to be absent can give either a general proxy to any other board member, which allows that board member to decide for them, or they can give a specific proxy for any item on the agenda, which is yes or no. So let's go around for a discussion with people
Start
from.
online. Catherine, Fallon, do you have comments?
Yeah, I do. I think that, especially because occasionally we do have to have a special meeting and maybe somebody's not going to be available. I see value to this idea, although, with a hesitant caveat, because sometimes in hearing discussion that does happen in a meeting, there may be a point of view that you didn't already consider, and so it might have an impact and change how you would have voted. But overall, if it's a clear-cut item statement or something like that, then I'm in favor of the proxy vote.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ron. The person wasn't going to be there and didn't feel particular. It's not like they would have to give their proxy,
They
correct?
can always abstain.
I was going to say they could just not.
They don't have to give it.
So if you were concerned about the conversation piece,
I just feel we're here to do a representative job, and we should consider that every person's vote counts. And if they haven't done their homework, then they probably should abstain and not give them a proxy one way or the other. But usually people know whether they're going to be able to attend or not, but lots of times people have flat tires, can't get to meetings, things like that. Any other comments from the virtual side of the meeting?
Barbara?
Yes, I have a comment. I think that it is very important for us to have the discussions that happen on the meetings to make a decision. I do not believe anybody can go into a meeting knowing what will happen without having the information. Many of us do not have the time to listen to someone else telling them what they should or should not vote. ahead of time. We need to go into the meetings, knowing the packet, but also understanding that we need to be there to vote. If we are not there to vote, I do not believe that we actually have a vote in that topic. We need to be there.
Is that everyone from online?
Trustee Corvallin would be the next person. Trustee Corvallin?
Yeah, hi. I like the idea, but I agree with Barb and I agree with the caveat of Catherine, because there have been times I've been swayed through discussion, not all of them, but it has occurred. And if I would say it's a tough one, because I certainly would want more than just a yes, no. I would think the proxy would have to have a paragraph that they emailed to Ron or Kate, explaining why they vote yes or no, in detail. But that's a tough one. I don't know why this is here, because I feel like most of us attend the meetings, and sure, of course, you get a flat tire or something on a very, very important voting day, but that would be an exception, I think. So maybe we could have something, an exceptional proxy sort of allowance for these situations, that not, I don't want people to take advantage of it and just be like, oh, cool, I can just send in my proxy vote and now I don't have to go to the meeting. You know, that's my thoughts.
Thank you. It's all done online. Go around it. Whichever way you want to go.
Yeah, I think this is a tricky one. I feel like if we were having a hard time getting a quorum to meetings to be able to function, that we might say like, we're struggling and we need to use this as a tool, but my initial thought on it was that it's the conversation that happens in that moment where you change your mind. So I guess that would concern me about being so convinced that I wanted to do something and then not hearing the conversation and having that sway the vote. And then feeling like, well, if I would have been there and I would have heard that, maybe I would have changed my mind. So I'm a proponent of us getting to a point where we're meeting in person and making decisions. And if someone can't be here, they can't be here, and we have a quorum and we move on. Right? And then you catch up on what you missed. And at some point you say, either don't make it to the meetings, not going to do this anymore, or I go to the meetings, part of the conversation, I go.
I think about like what Steve's saying and what Trustee Corvallin had mentioned. First of all, I think of the two types of proxies, I would only be interested in the one where you can tell a person which way you're going to vote, not to give them your vote if you can't be there. But beyond that, I'm a little ambivalent about it because I can't think of the specific, but I know that in the past year, there's been something where I felt really sure how I was going to vote. And then new information came up in the discussion at the meeting that was weighty enough that it changed my dynamic in my mind, and I ended up voting the other way. So that doesn't happen often. I can only think of one time that did happen, but that would be a bad thing. And like Steve said, it seems like we are always having quorum, so we're can't think of when we had to reschedule. So we're not having that problem. And yeah, so I guess that I don't really know which way to go, because most of the time I do really feel strongly that how I'm going to vote doesn't change. But I can't think of a time at least that did happen. So yeah, I guess.
All right, I'll make the last comment. My feeling is that you need to come to the meeting prepared.
Okay, going again.
And if you're not prepared ahead of time and you can't decide with the information you've got, there are surprises. I don't like surprises, particularly in the meetings where somebody comes up with something that is so dramatic that it changes my opinion. And, I think the smaller the unit, the more representative it has to be. And I don't think it's representative when somebody doesn't do their homework, doesn't vote, and then somebody else comes up with something that was such a game changer that, nobody's had time to consider it beforehand. I don't like that. So that's why it's on the, discussion item. Let's, move to the next then, which is the utilization of our line of credit.
I don't think you got to everybody yet.
Who else is it?
Yeah.
We were
I'm
going
sorry.
with Scott.
That's
and
right. I
Andrew.
apologize. I did not mean to skip you.
So I have to say that, so that I'll be brief because we are moving on. It sounds like we don't have enough support for this, and I wouldn't support it. I don't think the way it is, because like other people have said, the discussion to me is important. Nobody likes big, huge surprises, but new information does sometimes get us to see things in a new way, and that's what we come together for. So I think the discussion is important. The other thing, the first proxy, which is a general proxy, I think there's no way I could agree with that, because that then gives someone in the meeting double the impact of everybody else when you can actually make someone else's decision for them. So I don't think it matters, because I think we've already gone past the issue.
Yeah, I don't need to. Yeah, I think given that we don't have trouble getting a quorum, that, if we had trouble getting a quorum, it'd be one thing, but then, I think this is also one where, I, really, I think going into it supported a specific proxy, but then, hearing the discussion and really acknowledging that the discussion is very important to decisions. So, all right, that's enough.
Okay, let's move to the next item. That took 7 minutes. That was too much.
Actually, you're at 10 minutes for each of these right now, because I took the timestamps for my minutes. So no, you're actually doing awesome. So keep it going.
Utilization of the line of credit. We established a line of credit, but it's fairly useless unless we use it, because you have to use it over a period of time to establish a reputation with your bank as paying back your bills on time and with the frequency that's necessary. So that's why I want to see us activate the line of credit, which we established just for that reason. So it's before you as a discussion item, so please begin.
Do you want to start in the room or online first?
Always online first.
Okay. Catherine, do you have any comments?
Well, I guess I would want to know a lot more specifically what is in mind for using this line of credit. As far as I can tell, most banks like you to have a healthy deposit and everything like that. And yeah, establishing that you pay your debts back, especially if you're an unknown quantity like an 18-year-old child, that would be important, but I'm not sure that it's as important in our particular format.
Barb, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm with Catherine. I don't think that we need a line of credit if we have no projects before us that actually need it. So I am not for using it at this time. I think if a project comes forward that we have fully vetted and we have decided that we need to tap into the line of credit, that's one thing, but I don't think that we need to do it right now. There's nothing before us that needs us to tap into that funding. Let's leave it alone until something comes forward that we actually need the money for.
Okay. Trustee Corporal?
Hi, I'm ambivalent. I don't know that much about economics. I understand that, yeah, the more you borrow, the better credit you have, et cetera. So I would go either way on it. If we want to use it to pay our bills and then pay it right back, that does build credit. I also don't think we're in any big hurry to do that, because we did just get it like a year ago or less. So, I would probably just go ahead and vote yes for it because I don't see the harm in doing it. I also don't think I would be devastated if it didn't pass. So that's where I stand.
Thank you. Is everybody online too?
Okay.
Probably.
I'll start with you.
Yeah, I see this as exercising the line of credit and using it just with the expectation that it's for just ongoing, bills and expenses that are immediately paid back. The intention of building that line of credit so that when there is a larger project that has been vetted, and if a line of credit is needed or a larger line of credit is needed, we have that option open to us. I don't see there being any drawback to exercising this line of credit, provided that it is, only for, the existing bills that we have in the first place that need to be paid, and that they're paid back, immediately from the bank account. So that's where I'm at with it.
Scott?
I'm gonna go out on a limb with this. So with all due respect, I'm very uncomfortable with this because it creates the appearance of a conflict of interest. The last time we met, we were talking about lending money to businesses. And with this proposal, we're talking about borrowing money. And when we're talking about borrowing money and lending money at the same time to businesses, and with you being the business property owner in town, and also being the chairman of this team, I think it creates the appearance of a significant conflict of interest. If it's not for a specific purpose, I really am unable to support doing this.
You're finished?
I am.
Steve Curl?
Yeah, Scott, I think to your point, on some levels, I think that, line of credit, credit takes time to establish, and you need to borrow and pay back and show that you're trustworthy. And, I think banks often will look at something as simple as borrowing against the line of credit and then paying back a day or 3 or 5 days later. I think surprisingly that does increase your creditworthiness. And line of credit and creditworthiness takes time to establish, and you can't wait until you need the line of credit or the credit to be able to borrow. You need to establish that ahead of time over a long period of time generally, if you want the bank to be able to act on that. So I do see a benefit to using our line of credit that's secured by our 500,000 CDs, and then paying it back very quickly. And as I understood from this aim, what was being proposed is basically when we go to town and borrow from the water fund, and we have the $50 interest charge, that gets paid back very quickly by our accounts. And so what we're doing here is just instead of borrowing, doing the exact same process, but instead of happening from the water fund to town, we're now establishing a small amount of creditworthiness. And we're doing the same thing of, borrowing and paying it back. Also, just to Scott's point, I think this is also, it's all has to be a board decision, so it can't be one person who's doing this. So I do think that there's that level of security, let's say. As Scott said, it's the look of impropriety or possible conflict of interest that he's more concerned about. So I don't see a real issue with anything happening where anybody could access these funds in the wrong way, because the whole board has to agree and vote on it. So anyway, I'm in favor of it. I think that it is a good way, a very simple way for us to establish a credit. And who knows, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, the DDA may have some big building project that they will need credit for. And you can't establish credit on the spot. So we would have a track record leading up to this. So even though Scott's point, it does raise at least look at, I'm in favor of doing this way.
I want to get a clarification from Ron. So yes, he does want to do the water fund loan instead of doing the water fund loan, doing it from the credit line. But you also want to pay our bills monthly from the line of credit, correct? That's part of what this
Either monthly
discussion is.
or monthly would be best. That's the
Well, we
way
have
it's normally done.
Okay, yeah, because we have to pay our
And
bills
We're not
monthly. and
changing
then-
our method of payment.
Yeah,
We're changing, or I mean, we're not changing the time period that we pay things and then we pay them when due.
Mhm.
We're changing from the water fund to our line of credit.
yes. Okay, there's just been other discussion. That's why I wanted to make
With
sure it was clear.
Exactly what Steve
Yes,
Carell
okay.
said.
That's what.
In terms of a long-term relationship with a lender, that when you need this, you've established.
I understand that, but our discussions have been that you didn't want me to pay bills right now until this was clear, because if the event that this
Oh,
went through,
absolutely.
that then we would be doing
I
a
don't
line
want
of
you to pay
credit.
any bills out of line of credit until it's approved by.
No, I understand. Okay, we'll talk about that. I think that there needs to be a clarification on that for me internally. So if it is correct with what Steve Carell is saying, then I do understand. But there was some emails that I guess I don't understand
Steve
about how they
Carell
would do that.
stated it succinctly.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Steve Roundtree.
Ron, will we be paying interest on these loans?
Yes,
But
Yeah.
then we're losing money. We're giving the bank money for nothing.
We already
Right.
have the money.
I'm sorry.
We have the money in our accounts. Why would we pay our bills and have to pay interest on it when we have the money? That makes no sense.
This is one of the reason it makes no sense is I guess I haven't explained it well, or maybe Steve is not.
Well, I'd
explaining
like
it
to know
well.
how much average it would cost us in the interest. If it's $100, $1,000, $20, just for paying our bills, what would our interest be?
My guess is probably $10 a month. I'm just guessing. It would depend on how much we borrow. Interest is calculated on how much we borrow. So if we
Yeah,
have a
but
bill,
based on our average bills, which don't change, I mean, unless we're talking about,
It's too average to generalize.
Yeah.
So
well,
what is the interest rate on this line of credit? It's probably connected to LIBOR.
it's either LIBOR or the Fed funds rate.
Okay, and that has gone up significantly.
It has gone up significantly.
But I'd like a clarification on something. So one of the things that's been said is we use it to pay our regular bills. But this document, or in our agenda, it says to further the goals and projects of the DDA. And I interpret that to mean we're gonna do more than we currently do in this. And that's why I think it looks bad to be borrowing money here and then lending money here.
Well, this is in the minds of a few, simple, in the minds of other very complex. So what I've done, I've gone out on a limb and asked a banker to come this Friday, if people can make it, to a special meeting to explain this in detail. Because I don't seem to be getting the point across, and I apologize, I'm trying.
I think it's the disconnect between, for me at least, it's for the rest of this year, we've already done water loans for most of our projects. So there are two that we just went through the BOT that this could change the course of that for. But we already have borrowed for the water fund for projects. So I don't quite understand how that will work. So do you want me to pay our bills and then or work with the line of credit on that? That's because that was part of what we had talked about during our meeting with Miranda, was to lay out like, what were the procedures? Like, what are your thoughts around how this would work with the line of credit so that we could all be on the same page?
So we pay X A bill for $50.
Yeah.
We pay B bill for $100.
Mhm.
We pay C bill for $300.
Mhm.
So the total of that, each one of those bills is paid with a check from the loan fund.
Okay.
Then from the TIF fund, we pay it back at the end of the month. That's it. That is.
So I've had an experience with this before, but the problem is that if you pay off the credit in full each month to avoid, excessive interest charges, the lenders often don't look at that as that you actually are showing credit worthiness. It just shows that you have enough money to pay off what you've borrowed every month, but they don't consider that credit. They consider it credit when you're holding a balance with them and paying it off on time or slightly ahead, but they're interested in making money. So they're interested in you holding that balance and paying interest on it. Otherwise, you pay it off in full each month. And I've had it explained to me by several bankers that they don't consider that actually credit worthiness. They just consider that basically you're shuffling money around.
Well, bankers have different views on, and banks have personalities just like people. So this is one of the reasons for inviting a banker who deals with DDAs, deals with the funds, to try and make an explanation to those of you who haven't followed what Steve Crow and I have been saying. I understand some of your concerns. I think we simply need to have a vehicle that gives us what's called in the financial world leverage. And Steve stated, you don't get that over maybe 1 year, even 2 years. You have to establish it. And the banks look at the statements. And some banks I've talked to are not the least bit interested in dealing with a quasi-government entity or a district like we are. The man I have coming does nothing but advise and help DDAs. So if you can come Friday at 2, there will be a banker to explain in detail and answer any questions that I guess I've done the best I can, and I don't think I've gotten the information for you that I think you need. So,
Well,
go ahead.
I just want to add in that I think it is the question, the language in it, as Scott brought up, it does make it confusing. I would prefer, this to be explained, as explained above, to increase, to develop / increase our line of credit. But I think also, being able to talk to the banker, to further the goals and projects of the DDA is very vague and open-ended sounding.
Well, it's actually not even vague. It's just not, it does not concur with paying the bills. It's a totally different purpose.
Right. So, I mean, I think my thought on this was that its sole purpose, the sole purpose of using, I'm going to say, exercising the line of credit was to build, establish the line of credit and increase the line of credit over time. And if the banker this Friday says, yeah, doing that, and if you pay them off every month, that still counts, then, I'm in support of it. If he says, yeah, if you pay them off every month, that doesn't count, then it's less appealing. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, let's end this discussion. If anybody else has any comments. Sorry,
I have a question.
Steve Roundtree hasn't had a chance to speak. Let's let him speak first, and then.
Yeah, I
if
think
you
just
like,
as it relates to the line of credit and using it to build a bigger line of credit, pay bills. I think we should just, we have some good dialogue. I think it's important that we look at this and make sure that we're doing something that shouldn't be the only DDA in the country trying to do something. So is it an established best practice to do something like that? If we can show that is, work with a banker that's working with other DDAs doing this. General hypothetical scenarios about credit and different things, like we should work with a banker and get some very specific details. And also, we have access to some good legal guidance over DDA functionality. And we should make sure that if this is something that we're going to do and we feel like there's an upside to doing it, that we're doing something that's a best practice for DDAs and that we have legal clearance to do, and that everything is clear and well stated when we decide that we're going to do something. And then if we get to that point and we all say that there's value in this because we want to be able to do a bigger project, and we want to, if it feels like this sets us up to be able to do that faster, then we should do it. And if we run into roadblocks that make it so that this isn't legal or a best practice or that it's not gonna do anything, then we shouldn't. But I think that what we should do is plow forward and get some more details, because what we have right now is not enough information, I don't think, to say, no, we shouldn't do it. So I think we have some opportunities here to figure out, I mean, if we're paying a fee to the town, $50 a month for the way that it's currently happening, because that came up,
Oh, $50 a transaction.
$50 a transaction,
Transaction. Yep.
right? So if we're already paying $50 a month for something to happen, and if it could be 10 to 30 a month, we might be saving money. So I think we should continue to look at this, because there's still potential upside. And if we see that it isn't legally the right thing to do, or from a best practice standpoint, the right thing to do, then we should stop it. So that's my opinion.
I'd like to speak just briefly, really, I think, overtime on this. And that is in terms of conflict of interest. Everyone in the DDA has a conflict of interest.
That's a generalization I cannot agree with.
Well, you don't agree, but I'm going to make my comment, and that's quite all right. You made yours, I deserve the right to make mine. The abuse of a conflict of interest is what counts. And I've been studying this intensively, including Supreme Court cases where the conflict of interest arises and what the consequences are. And the consequences are that if somebody abuses their conflict of interest or creates far more benefit to themselves by doing so, then there's a problem. And so I'm very conscious of that. And I'll state that I was very active on our committee to get the Big Springs parking. Okay, that's on the other side of town. That's for the shopping center. That's for those people. I don't think I have any conflict of interest working on parking for that particular area. Nor do I think I have any conflict of interest in working on parking problems throughout the rest of the town, even though much of my property borders where there are parking problems. Any conflict that I have, I put on the board, and I have recommended, and I will recommend now that every board member file a conflict of interest statement with the Secretary of State to be sure that you have notified publicly that you have a conflict of interest. And everybody should do it, because everybody is either, well, lives in town, lives in the district, has a business in town, or qualifies under the statute to be on this board. It costs you $3. And we have a situation in our history where a board of trustee member was convicted or actually plea bargained to the extent that he had abused his conflict of interest and therefore got convicted of a misdemeanor. So this is an important aspect, I think, for every board member to do. And I recommend that you do it. Go online to the Secretary of State website, state what your assets are and what your conflict of interest is. And you've met the criteria for acknowledging your conflict of interest. Excuse me. So I'm very careful to make sure that I'm not abusing. So
Just was that supposed to have anything to do with the use of the line of credit?
no, it doesn't at all.
Okay,
Scott
yeah.
brought it up.
Get off
and
track.
a great poem about that. So I'm answering Scott's specific question, even though it wasn't on the agenda.
What was not on the agenda?
Conflict of interest. You brought it up.
I brought it up in response to this issue.
Yeah, but I'm explaining. I have a banker coming to talk to the board on Friday as a special meeting. It's been noticed and scheduled, and I hope you'll come and question the banker.
Where was that
Without-
publicly noticed? I'm sorry, I haven't seen that and it hasn't been sent to the DDA board. So where was that noticed?
So we're talking about it tonight, and the notice will be posted tomorrow morning. We
Okay.
just didn't want to post it before everybody talked about it, was really the only reason I didn't post it before, so that there wouldn't be a lot of questions about what was going on. So we're talking about it now, and I put it in the packet, and then the posting will go up tomorrow.
It would be great to have more than a day or two's notice for those of us that run businesses, and like that's a short turnaround, but please let us know when that is, what time and where.
It's Friday at 2, and
What's,
it's at HubNet.
what's the legal requirement for,
24 hours notice is the legal requirement. So
Okay, let's
Thank you.
move.
we'll always try to give you as much notice as possible.
We have 45 minutes left. We have 9 items to go. So let's, chair reports in the packet. Anybody has any questions? Steve's our new treasurer. We're all hearing none. Any comments from anywhere? Sorry. Let's open that up, make sure that we,
There's nobody I've seen raising their hand
okay.
or talking.
Our new treasurer, Steve Roundtree, do you have any comments?
I just want to add to the reports and packet. It's basically the format that has been in there previously. In addition to that, we're working on updating signature cards for the bank accounts. Had a meeting last week with town staff trying to figure out the transition of how things are functioning. And then Kate and I have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning to do the same, go forward. So hopefully by next month's packet, we'll have some additional information that comes with the treasurer's report. That's all.
And I don't have anything to add to my report. Thank you all.
I have nothing to add to my report. I am including in your packets, though, the breakdown of what's coming before the Board of Trustees and why I think you may or may not care about it as the DDA. Just a couple of things. Obviously, that's my personal opinion of why you might care about it. You might care about everything. I don't know. So I'm giving you my thoughts. I also just, board meetings are subject to change up to 24 hours before the board meeting itself. So always check their agenda packets. An example is we thought STRs were going to come on the 1st and they got postponed. So just be mindful that anything could change, but I'm doing this for all boards and commissions. So you have an idea of what's coming down the pipeline for the BOT, and you can talk about it as a board, or you can come as an individual and weigh in on it.
Great, thank you. Next item. Beautification. I don't think there's anybody here.
So Judy just, that is from Judy.
Okay,
So I just put it in there for you all.
okay. Andrew, anything on Vicksburg?
Well, I think we've forwarded some of Steve's concerns regarding Edge's outstanding items, called punch list items, to JVA. And so I think waiting for Nathan.
Response.
Yeah, waiting for a response on that.
Okay. Performance space, Andrew again.
I don't have any updates on the performance space. I know we're trying to put together a meeting. Tanya, I saw some emails that we're trading back and forth about some proposed times,
Yeah,
but
To meet in person on site, I think is all everybody's preference. So
good. I haven't seen if there's a new update on what days or times, but I'm pretty flexible, so I hope to make it. I mean, I'm gonna make it. So let's pick a time we can all make.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, with our representative, Danielle.
Danielle is not here this evening, but her report is included. And then Riverwalk, Barb and Catherine.
I included my report, and I am meeting with Nikki tomorrow to discuss further. I have been in communication with Lee, and he has given me the map, which we sent, and there's just a lot of questions about what can or cannot happen, and I hope next month we can bring you more information about that.
Thank you.
Could I just ask a question of Herbert on that?
Yeah.
Thanks, Herbert. I was just wondering, what type of map did Lee Stedell share? Is it something of his surveying or?
It is something that he shared that he had done years ago. And then I've been back and forth with him on emails about the possibility of north side, south side, and with a couple of other options that might become available in town to extend it in different directions. I think it's best for us to bring it next month when I might have more information for you. I think that'll happen by September.
Okay, great, thanks.
Last item. Wayfinder.
Yeah, there's nothing new to what I wrote, but I'd just like to say that we will be bringing, well, we plan to be bringing an action item. We couldn't get the stuff back in time from merge that we wanted to present. And so just to be on the lookout for that. It's going to be the final sign locations, which Miranda and Kate and Steve and I and others walked and felt comfortable with. But the other part of that will be the messaging on each of the signs. And so we'd like to present those in good time for the board so they could read through them and picture them and, you know, come to the meeting with any issues they might have for the messaging. So anyway, that's all.
I would like to make a couple of comments before we adjourn. This meeting on Friday at 2 is the result of my talking with our attorney, Paul Benedetti, which centered around two things. It was the how to make it function, how to work it, how to explain it, and also conflicts of interest. He referred me to this banker whose name is Troy Brumberg. And Troy, as I noted, has worked with other DDAs. And I think we are going to need a consistent and reliable and experienced consultant, because I think issues are going to come up where that kind of advice can't be given by myself, whatever, because of the conflict of interest that Scott mentions. So we need some real guide rails. And I think this is an individual who could be not necessarily the one he's interested in presenting to us. So, and he was Paul Benedetti's suggestion. So I'm sorry, Tanya, that it's at short notice.
It wasn't the packet.
Yeah, it was in the packet, but it is short notice, and I agree. I like much more notice if I can have it. But
I think it was
nevertheless,
scheduled yesterday, so everything was scheduled yesterday, at least from what I knew, so.
anyway, that's, and if anybody else has any comment they'd like to make before we close the meeting, please speak up.
Yeah, I do. This is Tanya.
Okay. Go ahead.
I wanted to see, because we have the new system for giving the grants for events, the spraying applications in the fall. I feel like we're not doing a really good job of marketing in this and letting people know that it's changed from last year. I don't think there's been any social media posts or any email blasts, at least explaining this. And I think we should extend it till the next meeting and allow time to put it a couple social media posts, let people know who might be planning events in the fall, that they have an opportunity now to get money for the events and for the security. And nobody applied because I don't think people realize we've changed our system. The farmers market missed the deadline. They knew, but just like one day late on it for communicating. So I was wondering, it's not on the agenda, but would you guys be okay with having this come up on next month's agenda so that businesses and events have the opportunity to apply for these grants, that we have the money in the budget,
The 5,000 in special events.
Yeah, how much, I mean, I don't know off the top of the head, how much, we only have 5,000, including security?
It's special events. There's more in traffic control that I don't know off the top of my head.
Right.
But you have 5,000 still.
Like, for instance, Ron, if you wanted to apply for the special events for leaf peeping traffic, I guess we should put that on next month's agenda as well. Like, we should spend this money next month, since that was our intention, right?
So
Yeah,
Tanya,
yeah.
we don't have to do that next month. That is actually money that the DDA designates that does not have to be requested by an entity, but can be given to traffic, which we tried to do last year, but we tried to
Okay.
do it too late. So we could still do that any time of year. That is not
Oh, okay.
to
Well,
someone asking for it.
would people be open to extending the deadline till next meeting for people who have fallen through the cracks, like the farmer's market? I'm sure there might be others, because I don't know if we've done a good job of communicating our change of strategy. And I think a lot of people complain about how hard it is to do an event in Netherlands, and this is a prime example of that, in my opinion.
I don't have a problem extending a deadline. It's a board decision.
I mean,
So let's go around the board.
we should definitely be, hiring traffic people, no matter what, for, leaf peeper season, but I don't, as far as extending the deadline and doing some social media posts to make sure the funds that we allocated to be used are used that way, I think that's okay.
Scott? Sorry, I should have taken. it off.
No, keep, and then we'll go
Steve-
online.
Steve Carell,
I'm okay with that.
Steve Rountree.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we set the funds aside and then we had some people that requested funds more and we said, no,
Right.
we're only giving this much.
Right.
And so ultimately, it feels like we're kind of rolling into the end of the year here. We set aside money and we maybe discouraged some people and maybe made some other people feel like it's not worth the headache to even go ask for any funds. I guess the fall color time of year, the challenge is, we have this meeting, when we're sitting in this meeting a month from now, conversation about getting flaggers for fall color season. I mean, we're.
Well,
Yeah.
Steve, did the Ned or whatever, the one in September, that race, they didn't get money for
I'm
their,
not sure on this, I'm not sure on the specifics of that.
because they didn't come to us today, so.
They
I
just
would-
announced yesterday, Tanya, so I imagine they may not have even known the deadline. I mean,
Right, so
Net
I feel
Travel
like we
should have
could,
known, but because they're running it. But I
I
mean,
feel like we could give the money retroactively, since we actually asked for them to send the receipts after the fact anyway, before we cut the check, so I still think it's worth letting them
But
know they
didn't,
could
I
apply.
do think you did look at a Ned application already.
Yeah.
Did
it was
we?
Peak Endurance, actually, who took
Peak
over the-
Endurance, yeah, you did that, that was,
Gavin Came to the meeting.
yeah.
A long time ago.
I thought that
So
was
we're
for Net
talking about
Gravel, I
traffic
thought that was for
It
the
was
July
for
thing.
both.
No,
It was
he
for
took
both.
over
Oh,
the-
okay, well,
can you
anyway,
reach out? Can you reach out to all the?
Why the only
nonprofits?
person we knew that was coming again was the farmer's market. And so if there's other.
for Harvest Fest,
Other
yeah.
event organizers, but if there's other people that somebody can think of that I can email blast, I'm happy to do that.
Could I add
Great.
something to this discussion?
Yeah.
One thing is we don't lose it if we don't use it. So it's not like we have to spend this money and have to give it away. It goes back to our general fund and it can be used
Right.
for. So I think that's an important point to make. But also, now talking about the people that came earlier and we reduced their amounts significantly from what they came asking for. I just want to be careful if we're going to be funding anyone new, that we're not funding them in a larger amount. Because I think that would be wrong to do it after the
No.
fact. To get
No.
them.
Yeah, you changed your
No,
policy.
we gotta stick with our program, but.
You changed your policy, you would have to change your policy back to do that,
So I
to
just
to
think that-
undo what you have already done. So
Yeah. So
you
that
should be okay.
more
No, I
fair.
just want to extend the deadline, that's all, just 1 month.
So Tanya, what I'm hearing, you want to extend the deadline for the special event funding
For the
Uh, uh,
fall.
for the fall, right? And then are we all in agreement that we should be using the traffic? I guess that we've been talking kind of about special event funding and then traffic, both in the same discussion. And I think it's my understanding there's traffic funds that people can apply for to get funding for flaggers, et cetera. Okay, what about, and then forgive my ignorance, but aren't we in a position to use some of that funds as a DDA to just make traffic flow smoother in town every given
Yes, and
weekend?
last year we ran into trouble because we couldn't find anybody that would work with us, was my issue.
Does someone need to reach out to flaggers to try to get people set up for coming weekends?
We could do that, but I'm
Yeah.
afraid I run into the same issue I ran into last year.
I
Yeah,
think-
if we wait
but-
till next month to talk about it, will
We're
be
not
too
gonna wait
late.
till next week. We can use the budget to do this. It's just last year, we weren't able to spend it. And part of it was timing, but it was also the size and yada. So I can try again this year if that's what the board wants me to do.
Can we send out emails like in the next week to try to reach companies that might be able to help us with flagging? I think that like the weekend of September 22nd is it's like Fourth Friday in town. We have a huge art walk going on in town. We have a lot, and I don't know if that's a farmer's market weekend. Maybe Tanya knows, but
No, it's not, but it's prime leaf peeping, so. you know,
I'm
it's gonna
leaf
be busy.
peeping, yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
if we could reach out
The
and say,
farmer's market flaggers are available. They'll do
Yeah.
it.
It would be good to lock them in for the.
Contact
leaf peeping
information,
week.
please.
Yeah,
hey, if you have that list still, if you need it, I have it as well.
Do, and I think I have the farmer's market contact from last year, but send it to me again, please, so I make sure.
And also the next weekend, which is the 22nd, because that's 22nd, and then the weekend after that in September. If the snow has not flown yet, those should be our biggest weekends in town, and that's just from a retail perspective of when we get really busy. Is the last 2 weekends of September and sometimes the first weekend in October, if the snow has not come.
What do we?
yeah.
I'm-
So 2 topics, I guess. One, we
So-
want to secure flaggers for leaf peeping, starting now, making the calls so we're not scrambling. And then the one that I brought up, extending the deadline if any businesses or event promoters wanted the funding for events, like perhaps at Fourth Friday. Oh, no, we already did that. But no, we didn't do
That-
it fall.
Make a motion to move that to an action item? Is
Yeah,
that-
I'll make a
We don't have
motion
it
to
on your
move this to
agenda
an
at
action.
all.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Andrew.
I would ask that procedurally, you know.
Yeah, so what
we
if we
can
do
talk about it, but
Yeah.
you technically didn't.
Well, I mean, when
You
they
give a not a floor to give direction to you to contact vendors.
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't want it to be action.
Yeah.
Since their budget is for traffic and
Yeah.
safety and to do this, they don't need to.
No,
do
but you
anything
really need a
special.
real action item.
We don't need an action item on it. That was implicit in when we talked about it with the
You're
budget.
just not for
Yeah, I mean,
direction.
it's
Yeah,
already-
you can give me,
If it's already in the budget, we can decide
Yeah,
to spend it.
yeah.
It's not a for to move or to send an email blast out to vendors
Yeah.
or
Just
event
direct
people.
Kate to prioritize
Yep.
this as an
Okay,
action
thank you
item
for
for Kate.
remembering and bringing that up, Tanya. I think it's good,
Yeah.
good dialogue and an important. I mean, that time of year can be really challenging in town, but it's also a really big opportunity for businesses in town.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's our
Traffic.
last push. Well, that was it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you. Guys ready for motion to adjourn or any other business?
Yeah, but this-
Sure.
That
Motion
was
to
a lot of
adjourn?
other business, but good.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Bye.
Bye.
Adjourned at
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
33.
Thank you all.